welcome to another episode of OCB Natural Edge, the only YouTube channel where you can get your laughs and your muscles too. I'm your host, Sean Sully Sullivan. I'm here with my two amazing co-hosts, Jody Shakely-Wright and Aubrey Warwick. This episode, we're going to talk about the OCB drug testing policies. What are we doing? How does it work, etc. There is some questions on that, and I get them from time to time, so we want to cover that. Posed down a couple of really big shows for you, Madison, Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Natural, and a show that's near and dear to my heart, the OCB Hall of Fame in Lexington, Mass. We're also going to do our spotlight, and for pro tips, the question of the day is, do you take layoffs? If so, how long? So let's get right into it. So, OCB drug testing. You know what? I'm going to start this with asking somebody who has taken multiple drug tests, my two amazing co-hosts. What have you guys done for drug testing as OCB pros? What's been the normal protocol for both of you?
So the normal protocol is, so if you end up winning your class, or if you're in the top 3 at a pro show, then as soon as you leave the stage, you are escorted off to take a urine sample. And so no one has the opportunity to kind of deviate from as soon as they win or place, and then you're drug tested. And the OCB also does random drug testing at shows. In fact, the last show that I was at the Conquer, I was one of the random people. So as soon as I was done competing, then I was ushered off to provide that sample. So the urinalysis is a big piece of that.
What about you, Jody?
Yep, same. So I that's the only OCB that I know, and it was a surprise my first show because I think I've mentioned I didn't even attend a bodybuilding show before I entered one. So when somebody kind of held me closely and said, "Don't go anywhere," I'm a pretty good rule follower, so learned that process pretty quickly. But I don't have any worries. I mean, I know what I did. I know I haven't put in anything extra. So that has been the process. But the key is you actually get results back with the OCB. That's how I know it's legit.
And what about the screening process before you even get to the stage?
Ooh, so that's the polygraph. And I will tell you, my nerves do raise a little bit because I'm always afraid of a false positive. Like, I know I haven't taken anything, but without giving away the polygraph questions, I have been asked some very current, relevant questions about supplements. So I can tell you that the people who do the polygraph testing are constantly on the lookout for new things that appear on the market. And I was ever impressed with that when I competed earlier this year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to dive into it from the OCB perspective. And that's essentially it, but there's a lot that people don't realize. So let's start with the screening process. Yes, the OCB does use polygraph. However, we have other options available for us. It's not just polygraph. So nothing is all inclusive. People think that the OCB is just polygraph and urine. Not true. When you go onto our OCB website and it talks about the different screening process and the drug testing processes, we have a lot of options. We have voice stress analysis. We're looking into there's a new technology out that actually looks at eye sensitivity and pupil reactions to different stress and stimulus, and then the polygraph. Why do we lean predominantly on the polygraph? That is because the science behind it is the most current, the most thorough, and the most in-depth. If a new technology came out that was superior, we change in a heartbeat. We are ready to pivot with whatever is out there. And I hear all the time people talk about this new technology, that new technology, whatever. It may be better than a polygraph, statistically. It may be. But until you have a unbiased, peer-reviewed study that's done on it, where nobody has a vested interest in an outcome that compares the different methodologies, then we're not going to use it. And right now, polygraph comes out very, very high. Voice stress analysis, like I said, I have gone through the class. I have the software. I can use that. It is not quite as accurate as polygraph. That's why we generally fall back onto the polygraph for the screening process. We can also do 100% urine testing if we want. If we wanted to collect everybody's urine for a show, we can do that.
Okay.
And then, like I said, we're looking at the newest technology that came out that does look somewhat appealing, but needs more independent research. And that's the thing with the pupils of the eye. I'm not going to get too into it because there's only really one company out there that's mastered the protocol. And when you get away from what they say about it, I just need to see more information that's that's not organized and conducted by them. I'm not saying that it's not as superior. I'm not saying it's not as good, or a combination of doing 2 or 3 of these methods together. Once that research comes out and it's validated, and that's the important thing, it needs to be independently validated. Once independently validated, we're on it. So also, what do we do for the polygraph? Well, we have our own proprietary system that was created by somebody in our network. At the OCB, we have a network of polygraphers, and it is headed by somebody who was actually the professor of where I went to school, and we recruited him and brought him in. So we actually have somebody on our board that is actually peer reviewed. There's court case, there's case law behind him. I mean, legit. And he is working with our training protocols within our polygraphers to make sure that we are all, standardized. Everybody is current and updated. So, so we utilize that as a screening tool. And why do I say screening tool? And I say screening tool because no method is 100% infallible. It's just not. As a polygrapher, I can say that there's a certain segment of the population that you just can't get a good reading on. Sociopaths, narcissistic sociopaths. There's just different, people with mental disabilities. Not that a lot of them compete, but there's just like a whole slew of situations that can occur. So we do the backup with the urine for a pro card. Also, random urinalysis and off-season random urinalysis testing for pros too. But it doesn't stop just at urine. We can also do blood testing. So blood test is also an option open for the OCB. Now, why don't we blood test everybody? Well, because the laboratory that we work for is an IOC laboratory. They are, they do Olympic athletes. They do WADA compliant. They're up there. And we've had many, many conversations with them about the better testing methodology to use to get the best bang for your buck. And if you ask yourself, why is it that the Olympics use urine, and NCAA, and NFL, and MLB, and the beat goes on? Why are they all deferring to that? And it's because it is still the superior test. It can catch more things for a longer period of time. And here's why. Substrates don't stay in your blood system as long as they stay in your kidneys and filter through your liver and extract out through your urine. Anybody who has taken any kind of chemistry knows that different things end up in your bloodstream and then get filtered through and end up in other organs of the body. And then those waste and byproducts get excreted in the urine. That's how it works. So why do we predominantly use urinalysis testing? Because it is the most accurate, goes the furthest back, and you get the broadest spectrum. However, there are some things that can't be picked up in urine that can be picked up in blood. Short periods of time. So that becomes an option for us. So if we're flagged for a reason, or we suspect something, or we just want to change things around, we have the blood test. The only thing that we haven't really looked into is the hair analysis. That is something that would be a protocol that we could look into the future. But the one thing I know from my 25 years in police work is that at the time, the hair analysis thing was ungodly expensive, number one, to make it not cost effective. And it had a lot of limitations as well, because some things in the half-life and the way they work don't make it through the cellular process to end up in hair, skin, and nails. I'm not a scientist. If there's one watching this, then hop into the comments and let us know, because I'd like to talk to you. But that's it. Those are the protocols that we use. So it's not just a polygraph screening, and it's not just your analysis. If there is a testing procedure out there that's validated by science and that can help us, we're going to utilize it. And as my two awesome co-hosts said, you will always get your urine results back from the OCB. That's all part of the process. Our director, pro membership director, and our urinalysis czar, Chad, will send you your results with a full reading. Also, for urinalysis failures, we have a whole process involved with that. I'm not going to get into that because this isn't about what happens if you fail. But there are protocols involved with that are part of the WADA compliance. The last thing I'm going to bring up on the drug testing, and it's a question we get a lot, and that is everything bans for 7 years, and if you fail for a substance, is everything a 7-year suspension? The answer to both those questions is no. We go by WADA guidelines and recommendations on how long a substance is banned for. So suspension times are going to be based on the substance that you have gotten caught taking. So if it's a substance that was banned for 6 months, then we'd be looking at somewhere around a 6-month ban. If it's a 7-year ban, then we'd be looking at something in the term for years. Another question we get asked is, what do you do when their testosterone to estrogen ratios are above a certain level, or what about this, or what about that? This is all stuff that comes up so infrequently that we don't really need to get into deep discussions. If it's something that ever happens to you on a urinalysis report, reach out to Chad and he will explain to you the system and what we do and other additional tests that can be taken. It's why when you're a pro, we split your samples into an A and a B, and there's just all these other things that we do. And the last thing is our chain of custody. If you're ever at an OCB event and you get your selection for a random urinalysis test, or you've earned your pro card, or you're in the top 3 for the money, you are going to be babysat until the urinalysis collector takes you and brings you to the collection facility. And then you're going to go one at a time through your paperwork, and then you have to watch the entire process all the way up until your urine is sealed into the little bag and then dropped into the shipping envelope. This is because the chain of custody is so important, and we need to follow it from beginning to end. So what I'm telling you as competitors, don't disappear. Don't be at an OCB event and say, hey, I want my pro card. I'm going to go off and go to Burger King. I'll come back in 2 hours for my urinalysis testing. You violated chain of custody, so don't get lost. Don't disappear. And the last thing is staying hydrated. We talked about it. Water, 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 water. Don't cut your water. Don't eliminate your water. Don't dehydrate. So if you come in and you're so severely dehydrated that we're waiting for 2 hours afterwards for you to take a urinalysis test, we're probably going to be calling a rescue squad to have them come out and take a look at you because it could have some kind of kidney problem. And you don't want to be the cat that's sitting there for, holding up the line for everybody to go home for 2 or 3 hours because you're trying to drink enough water to make sure you can pee. So that's it. That's the OCB drug testing. I just wanted to eliminate some of the mythology out there. We don't just do urine and polygraph. We have multiple options available. So don't be surprised if you go to a test and you're expecting a polygraph and you get told everybody's going to do a urinalysis. It can be anything as long as we have a screening and we also have an end result for the pro cards with a deep dive into the urine. Also can do blood. It's just not as good. And that's why we do what we do. So, do you guys have any questions or any follow-up on that?
I do. Information on nutrition evolves. Information on training evolves. It makes total sense that information on drug testing should evolve too. So I sincerely appreciate the OCBs on top of it because that ensures a fair stage for everybody.
And there's all kinds of emergent technologies out there. There are a lot of things that are happening right now in truth detection, we'll call it that. But there's a reason why the CIA, the FBI, national security agencies, etc., still fall back on the polygraph. It's because they, like us, are going to go with what is known, with the known. When something else emerges, you can, especially when it comes to like the national security and people with their SCI, TS clearances, especially with some of the faux positive happened recently. We're not even going to get into those because this podcast ain't about that. But if they could come up with a better 100% foolproof method, they jump on it. but there's a reason that they're still utilizing that as a tool for screening out people as us.
Yeah. That was a great breakdown. And it just gives you peace of mind that you know that you're competing against apples to apples.
Yeah. Yep. And we're doing the best we can. And again, no system is infallible, but this is why at least we have a 2-layered protocol. 100% screening, and then urinalysis testing for random individuals, pro card winners, and cash prize winners. So, it's the best thing we can find right now. Right now. And speaking of right now, time for some pose downs. What do we have up for shows?
Cannot wait. I want to feature our Madison, Wisconsin show. That was the OCB Wisconsin on June 21st. And Sean Jennings, promoter, had over 90 competitors. So roll that gorgeous muscular footage.
Our next highlight is near and dear to Sully's heart. This was his OCB Hall of Fame Pro and Amateur competition in Lexington, Massachusetts. Sully, we are so sad that we weren't there, but I saw all the video footage. Everything that you posted looked phenomenal. The swag, 154 competitors, including 55 pros. And it was definitely one of the biggest events of the season. Stacked lineups, amazing conditioning. And Sully, was this your largest Hall of Fame show that you've done?
So far.
Okay. Yeah. Congratulations. That deserves some snaps.
And it was a phenomenal, I just got to say, it was a phenomenal group of competitors, coaches, spectators. I mean, we filled the house and it stayed pretty much packed all day. There wasn't like the surge for a category. People were there all day. The athletes were great. The venue's gorgeous. I have even more ideas on how to make it better next year and streamline it. But it's all about the orange and shiny people with the high heels on stage. So let's go look at them for a while.
All right.
If you're thinking about competing, I would say to go for it. I didn't think that I would ever step on a stage, and the fact that I've done that and won my pro card in my first show, and it's been so amazing. So go for whatever dreams you have, because you can achieve them.
The most rewarding part is that the show itself is really enjoyable, and I get to see the results I've been putting in for months.
I feel like it's a high level of competition. Once you're backstage talking, everyone is like-minded, similar goal. It's like a family.
All right, so those were our shows for this week. Now we're going to spotlight some athletes. And as always, I like to go first because, well, I'm the greedy Gus, and, you know, I got somebody really, really awesome to talk about, and that is one Eric Shelton. Yes, Eric Shelton, who won the Yorton Cup a couple of years ago. Also, what people don't know is my relationship with Eric goes back to when he won the Battle of the Gods Pro Show. It's another show that I promote back in the COVID year. So when COVID occurred and we had to shut down all the shows, we were able to have the Battle of the Gods. I had 144 competitors at a show with no audience inside a hotel ballroom because it was all you could get. So he came in and he kicked some competition butt. And that kid looked good, and it put him on my map for a long time. And I watched him all the way up until winning the Yorton Cup a couple of years ago. And then he took last year off. And now he's been popping up all over Instagram. And I am so excited because, as you can see in these videos here, he is training like an animal for this year's Yorton Cup. And he's also got a physique that I really love because he can transition into classic or men's physique. So which one is he entering the Yorton Cup in this year? We're just going to have to wait and find out. So shout out to Eric. If you want to follow him, his Instagram title is his name, Eric Shelton. He's also part of Carolina Muscle with another Natural Edge favorite, Jamal Williams, who happened to win the Hall of Fame Pro in the Classic Physique category. So Carolina Muscle, worth giving a follow. It's a great podcast, very, very entertaining. They do a great job with it. So yeah, Eric Shelton, can't wait to see him on that Yorton Cup stage this year.
Outstanding. Well, I have an outstanding athlete as well, and it is Rob Wedge Jr. He is currently an amateur, though he is knocking on the door of his pro card, I am confident. He recently took second at the OCB Hall of Fame. So, Sully, I know you saw him up close and personal. So close to that pro card in a stacked competitive class of 9. So if you ask me, it's always worth winning your pro card when it's extra competitive. So he's definitely right up there. And I highlight him also because there's a lot of second place folks out there. And if you continue to compete, you never know what could happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks as you continue with your season. So keep at it. Rob has excellent fullness. He smiles. Some of you guys on stage get so focused on what you're doing and I can see you're concentrating, but smile. Rob does that. It does make a difference. No, there are not points awarded for that. Yes, it will draw the judges' eyes to you. So on that note, what drew me to him? His physique and his stage energy. And if you happen to stalk his Facebook, there's a really cute photo. I don't know if it's his son, but somebody took a photo of his son from behind cheering for Rob on stage. Super cool. Christmas card photo. And just my final message, stay tight, Rob. Keep cranking on your conditioning. Next show could be yours.
Oh, that is so great. I love that. 2 awesome athletes, and I'm going to finish it out with actually a female athlete. Her name is Audie Harvey, and she is an OCB amateur figure competitor. Now, I've been following her journey for the last 2 years. She's also a mom of 3. She's an entrepreneur, and she made my last suit for the Conquer. So when she got into competing with the OCB, that's how Audie and I met. And she attended some of my posing clinics. She wasn't particularly enthralled with the different suits that she was ordering, so she never made a suit in her life. Lo and behold, now she has a business called Swole Suits, and Audie now is she's preparing for the OCB Dallas competition in August. And if you guys want to follow her journey or just see her beautiful suits, I'm also on her page. No shameless plug there. That you could check out Swole Custom Suit Designs. And definitely, Audie, wishing you the best of luck. And we hope to see that figure pro card in your future.
Outstanding. Some great athletes that we're finding out there in the field. So if you're interested in being a spotlight athlete, hey, reach out to us at one of the shows that we're at, because you never know who we're going to feature. It ain't all pros, as you can see. And speaking of pros, time for pro tips. So this one came from the Hall of Fame, and I apologize. I cannot remember who it was who asked me this question, but somebody came up to me at the show and said, hey, Sully, I got a question for pro tips. Do you ever take layoffs? And I turned around and I said, yeah, I've been on one for 18 years, ever since I retired. So yes, I took I'm on a layoff now. So yes, do you take layoffs, and how long, and when do you incorporate them? So we're going to start with the doctor, Jody.
All right, so call it some time off, sabbatical, deload. From time to time, I do take time off, never in competition prep, but generally speaking, I try to take 1 week off per year from my strength training. And I'll tell you, it sounds like a good idea on day number 1, but by day number 3 or 4, I'm climbing the walls. So the way that I get right with this is I try to insert some other activities, something that a dance class, and something that's still active, a hike that isn't going to thrash my body, but I still get the break from the resistance training. And 7 days would make one Jody very stir crazy. So do what works for you. The other factor to consider is intensity. I didn't used to train as intensely as I do now, nor was I 52 30 years ago. So with age, sometimes rest is more. I want y'all to think about that. And sometimes those symptoms of overtraining can appear as something else. What do I mean by that? I think most of us know that when your bodies are moving through cement, when it feels like that, it's time to pull back. But other symptoms like insomnia, loss of appetite, frequent illness are also signs of maybe you need some time off.
Yeah, and definitely I can echo this with Jody. I think the big part of it, when you're in the trenches, you are training for a competition, and it's you versus your ego. And it's like you have to check that ego that you've disciplined so well that it's like, no matter what, I'm going to show up today. I'm going to do this workout. And you guys have heard me say this all before. I channel my inner David Goggins. And that works up into a point until you exhibit all the signs of overtraining. So I almost feel like the person who asked this question, if do you take days off? If so, when? You probably need a day off, because you probably don't fall in the category of someone who's using facts as an excuse. Sometimes is what I say, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm really busy. That's a fact, but we don't want to make it an excuse. So if you are exhibiting signs of overtraining, it's like literally your body's moving through mud, you have mood swings, your sleep is impacted, where you're waking up more than once a night. Take note of these things. And this is where you want to kind of check the discipline ego and allow yourself some time to heal and recover. I, like you, Jody, it is kind of challenging for me because I like to be in the gym. I like to be in the gym. That's like my stealth mode time. Yep. So even when, like you, probably 1 week off a year, I will probably still find a different fitness modality. Or if I do go to the gym, I'm using the red light room at Planet Fitness, or, getting a massage there, or just walking on the treadmill, something pretty low key. So make sure, gang, that you're listening to your body and taking note of these signs and symptoms, because in the long run, you'll be able to stay in the game for the long run.
And periodic layoffs? Absolutely. So here was my methodology on it. Some of the things that I've learned through my experiences and through studying and working with clients for years and years and years. The greater your training age, meaning your training age, how many years you've consistently been training, the more and more frequent layoffs you need. Also, men, you should be taking more layoffs than women. And here's where it comes into loading parameters. So, and neuromuscular efficiency as well. Also, endocrine system shutdown. These are all things that are very, very real considerations. I trained myself at my peak that every 9 to 11 weeks, I took a week of rest. Now, it wasn't detraining, it was active rest. So I might go in there and do some very, very light full body workouts, or I might do calisthenics, I might do some yoga. I kept the activity going, but it was non-systematic weight training. Also, over that 11-week period of time, I would always do intensity ramps. So I'd ramp my intensity up and my loads up, and then I would have a drop off, and I would go up and I have a drop off. Because remember, the muscle's not growing in the gym. The muscle's growing in your recovery. And also, your training is cumulative. So it's not just the muscles that you need to rest when you take a layoff. It's your endocrine system. It's your digestive system, because you might be able to go down in caloric intake and food volume for a week, which your body will thank you for. Also, your nervous system. Your nervous system is also key to all this stuff going on. And why do I say men need more layoffs than women? It's because, guys, you have a propensity to turn around and want to bench press 500 pounds every single workout, whether you need it or not. Every guy wants to squat 1,000 pounds. Guys, I'm sorry. I'm one of you. I know. Our egos get crazy in the gym, and it's always more, heavier, harder, more intensity. Ladies, what I've noticed about you and your training is you are much more deliberate. You are smarter, much more methodical, much more planned out, and usually you guys have progressing intensity levels and balance out. Also, you don't have the same number of neurons going through a muscle fiber. You don't have like the same issues with endocrine system. I would still recommend for any female advanced trainer, at least 1 or 2 layoffs per year, if not 3. And again, a week of active rest can be very, very helpful. Now, you're younger your training age, you don't really need it. As you're building up, as you're doing your first year or so of working out and training and acclimating to the stress, you're not using the same load, you're not using the same volume, and you're not using the same intensity. So you can go longer period of time without taking a layoff. But I do think they're very essential. I also, to quote Jody and Aubrey, a layoff where you're going to spend a week watching Game of Thrones series from beginning to end, back to back to back, with nothing but a big baggie of caramel popcorn. I'm not saying I did that, but I may have done that.
It's a very clear fantasy.
The layoff you should be taking. So keep your nutrition on point when you're in recovery. If your food is like really excessively high, it's a good time to give your digestive system a break, or just the opposite. If you really need the recovery, then eat a little more during your layoff. Let your body be the balance on that based on how you're going in, and get that layoff. I'm telling you, your endocrine system, your muscular system, and your nervous system will thank you.
Yeah.
So yes, you have it from the 3 pros. Layoffs, a good thing. Incorporate them systematically into your training. So that wraps up this show. But before we go, we want to announce a contest. So my co-host and I were figuring out ways that we could reward our listenership and also increase our listenership. So here it is. Starting this episode, we are looking for whoever is an avid listener of Edge that can recruit the most new listeners. All you have to do is have any new listener come on to one of the next 3 episodes. So this being episode 18, you have up to episode 21. Just put your social media handle on there. Hey, SaltCop96 sent me, new listener. And we count them up at the end. And whoever has the most new listeners gets up to $150 off their next entry at any OCB event. So if you're waiting to do your first show and you're listening to this, that would cover you for your entry, your novice, your debut, probably even your open. If you're an OCB pro and you're getting ready to do the Yorton Cup, that would cover half your entry. So all we're having you do is to reward you for listening, recruit some new listeners, and help us build up our brand so that we can get more athletes featured, more content coverage, more good questions, and we can just keep building this natural edge up. So that's it. This is episode 18. You have until episode number 21. Every new listener, have them put your social media handle down there. We will announce the winner at the end of episode number 22, and then we'll contact you and you can decide what show we are paying your entry fee into. So that's it, folks. That's our contest. So, hey, thank you. And in closing, as always, be safe, train hard, and stay natural. Bye.